have given too much focus to this issue of the impeachment of the deputy president, but that may have come at a cost because so much else is happening that probably requires our attention too. One of that is matters education. So the back page of the Daily Nation talks about preparations for transition to grade 9 in shambles. There's an acute shortage of teachers, particularly for science subjects, and inadequate infrastructure to accommodate learners. There's also that debate on where grade 9 should be domiciled. Is it in primary schools or in high schools? But this kind of confusion coming in a week where schools are closing. So for the next 2 months, students will be at home. The very first cohort of the CBC will be transitioning to grade 9 next year. We've not been able to get this thing right for the past 1 year or so. You deal with matters governance. Issues of education should be key for any administration. Do you think that this administration is paying enough attention to matters education?
Thank you so much, Fred. Actually, the organization is County Governance Watch.
County Governance
I know
Watch.
people say Governance Watch, but those two things are totally different.
My apologies.
No, never mind. I do not think that Kenya Kwanza is paying keen attention to matters of priority, particularly those that concern the citizens, and much more specifically to education. I remember that we've been here a number of times talking about the nature in which the government is not very keen to look at the education, not just for grade 9 or basically CBC, but education in totality. Mm-hmm. The sector is in a mess, and remember a few weeks ago we were talking about the fires in various institutions and the degree of investment that the government is putting in place. And unfortunately, it is quite disturbing that even in so saying, we do not see a level at which government is so serious even to update the country. And I think one of the most recent of those fires was the one in Nyeri, and then many other places, Fred. So if you look at how matters that concern the politicians and largely the parliamentarians are being taken into priority and are being given a lot of prominence amongst themselves, you ask yourself whether we are really in the same country. And especially because I am also aware that different stakeholders in the education system have been talking about the preparedness for grade 9 transition and especially the government's vision around education for all, quality education for all, and indeed its access. There have been lots of policies around 100% transition, and we've also had discussions around even the equipment and infrastructure of this particular education indicators or levels at different levels and indeed even different locations, because there are certain parts of this country where, for example, security has even stopped people from going to school. There are parts of this country where even as KCSE candidates are sitting the exams today, rather from yesterday, they lack equipment, basic equipment for them to be able to really get scored and ranked and rated with the others. So transition to grade 9, I think is something that government should have considered in terms of urgency, because they were aware that from the moment we moved into CBC and changed the system of education, then indeed we should have been ready. And it is quite more disturbing, as you rightfully said, that we still have shortage of teachers. And so you ask yourself, what kind of mechanisms must we put in place? And the government is aware about what we need to do. I was watching your station yesterday at KICD, where the CS of Education was actually launching books to be taken to schools. And so you ask yourself, what does this really mean to us? Is it books to schools that is of priority and prominence, or is it deep conversations with the stakeholders around how we prepare to transition to certain levels like grade 9?
And of course, the general public must be feeling the burden of this. Yes, as you rightly put it, KCSE exams are underway, today being day 3 or 2 of